Have you ever wondered what would happen if one country controlled the lifeline of modern industry? If just one decision, one restriction, could send shockwaves across the entire global supply chain? Well, brace yourself, because that's exactly what's happening right now. China has just changed the rules of the game, and the world is feeling the pressure. If you're curious about how the balance of power is shifting, why European car manufacturers are panicking, and what this means for the global economy, then keep watching. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below, because this is a conversation that affects us all. In a bold and strategic move, China officially added rare earth refining technology to its list of prohibited export items, and simultaneously restricted the export of 7 types of rare earth materials. The repercussions were immediate and profound. Rare earths, those seemingly obscure elements, are, in fact, the beating heart of modern technology, essential for everything from electric vehicles and wind turbines to smartphones and advanced weaponry. Without access to these materials, industrial production in many countries becomes virtually impossible. Almost overnight, the global rare earth supply structure was turned upside down. Companies that once took their steady supply of these critical elements for granted suddenly found themselves scrambling. Rare earths were no longer just raw materials, they became geopolitical bargaining chips. And in this new reality, access depended not on contracts or free market dynamics, but on diplomatic relations with Beijing. Now, multinational corporations around the world are facing an unexpected and unwelcome blow. Suddenly, getting hold of rare earths has become a high-stakes game of diplomacy. Nations are lining up to gain China's approval for shipments, but not everyone gets the same treatment. Those who have historically sided against China in international disputes or imposed sanctions now find themselves at the back of the line, waiting, sometimes endlessly. In contrast, countries that have maintained friendly relations with China are finding the approval process to be surprisingly swift and smooth. Among the hardest hit by this seismic shift are the European automakers. Take Stellantis, for example, one of the world's largest automotive groups, born from the merger of Fiat Chrysler and PSA Group. Recently, Stellantis found itself in a critical situation. Unable to procure rare earth magnets in time, several of its production lines in Europe came to a grinding halt. Workers stood idly in the factories, with nothing to do but chat and wait. Productivity plummeted. Time, money, and labor were all wasted, and there was no clear timeline for resolution. And this is not just a Stellantis problem. Across the European Union, car manufacturers are watching their rare earth inventories dwindle at alarming rates. Warning signs are everywhere. For many companies, supply levels have dropped below critical thresholds, flashing red alerts throughout the supply chain. A production crisis is looming, not in theory, but in reality. Just 2 weeks ago, the European Union took the unusual step of issuing an emergency ultimatum to Beijing. In a strongly worded diplomatic message, Brussels requested that China prioritize rare earth shipments to Europe within the next 30 days. The reason? Without immediate action, the EU warned, Europe's entire automotive industry could grind to a halt. This was not mere posturing, it was a genuine cry for help from a continent on the brink of industrial paralysis. But there's more to the story. Stellantis, perhaps sensing that traditional channels were failing, decided to take an alternate route. The company turned to its newly established factory in Serbia and hoped to leverage the historically strong ties between Serbia and China to open a friendly channel for rare earth imports. It was a calculated gamble, and Beijing responded quickly and clearly. China imposes restrictions on rare earth exports, but this does not apply to friendly countries like Serbia. That message was loud and clear. China's stance was not just about economics, it was political. Friendly nations would continue to receive support. Hostile nations, especially those involved in past sanctions or anti-China rhetoric, could expect cold shoulders and slow approvals. It's a textbook example of soft power mixed with hard control over resources, and it sends a powerful signal to the rest of the world. In the new geopolitical era, alliances matter more than ever. Now comes the burning question. Will China eventually shift its stance and reinstate regular exports of rare earth materials to Europe? Or is this the beginning of a deeper, longer-lasting divide between China and the Western Bloc? Industry analysts are divided. Some believe that China may eventually ease restrictions to maintain its image as a responsible global supplier. Others argue that Beijing is simply leveraging its dominant position to extract political concessions and reshape international dynamics. Meanwhile, European automakers are facing a crisis of confidence. Their reliance on a single source for such crucial materials has exposed a dangerous vulnerability. Many are now scrambling to diversify their supply chains, seeking alternative sources of rare earths in Africa, Australia, and even North America. However, building new supply chains takes time, years, not weeks, and Europe doesn't have that luxury right now. The situation is even more dire when we consider the broader implications. Rare earths are not just used in electric vehicle motors. They're also critical for military application, satellites, medical imaging, and renewable energy infrastructure. In essence, control over rare earth supply is control over the future. And right now, that control lies squarely in China's hands. For years, Western governments underestimated the strategic importance of these materials. Rare earth mining and refining were seen as dirty, expensive, and environmentally risky, so they outsourced the problem. China, with its vast reserves and state-backed industrial strategy, stepped in to fill the void. And now, having built the world's most sophisticated rare earth supply chain, it is using that leverage to advance its national interests. Europe is learning this lesson the hard way. The supply crunch has exposed not only a logistical issue, but a deeper political and strategic It's a wake-up call, one that could redefine how nations think about resource independence, industrial policy, and economic resilience. So, what happens next? Will this rare earth crisis trigger a new wave of resource nationalism across Europe? Will the EU invest heavily in domestic mining and refining, despite the environmental and regulatory hurdles? Or will European leaders be forced to soften their stance toward China, in exchange for continued access to the materials they so desperately need? One thing is certain: the age of complacency is over. Rare earths are no longer just elements on the periodic table, they are instruments of power. And in this new era, countries that control key resources will shape the future of global industry and geopolitics. If you're as intrigued as we are about the implications of this crisis, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Europe can break its rare earth dependence on China? Or will it be forced to play by Beijing's rules? The debate is only just beginning.